I'm really happy for you. I'm gonna let you finish. But Beyonce had one of the best videos of all time.
What's he doing?
Why would he do that?
He's a jackass.
So you need to hide your kids, hide your wife, hide your kids, hide your wife. Can do your low.
Good 2011 morning. It's the new year. Hey, and we're the R Resource. I'm still your host, Ryan Hills.
And I'm Gary the Hawk Hawkinson. Okay, so it's 2011, and let's be honest with you guys. We really wanted to poke some fun at 2010 and start 2011 with, Maxine Waters and Barney Franks, and just giving a hard time to all those guys that were the key players that made working in real estate so hard in 2010. But as we got ready for this week's show, we realized that 2011 is coming like a fully loaded Mack truck, and there is no stopping it. Let's be honest, 2010 left a lot of us battered and bruised.
Yeah, and we spent a lot of time with Brian Stevens from Think Big Work Small last week, and we actually talked to him quite a bit about this, and it sounds like it's industry-wide. It wasn't just people in our pocket, it was the whole industry. Hey, at the end of the day, we felt like this show is better suited getting people ready for 2011 rather than kind of poking fun at 2010.
This liberal will be all about socializing, would be about.
After all, guys, it's the 11th round, and some of us look like Rocky Balboa in the 12th round bill that is 2011 is getting ready to ring, and I don't know that we're all ready to answer that yet. There's a lot of distressing news that hit the wire this week, and you may not have noticed due to your eggnog and Jameson cocktail that you were drinking all week, but hey, let's get into it. 2011's here. We got to jump right into this.
Okay, so let's get right to it. Now, some of you may not have noticed last week in your drunken stupor with the Jameson and the eggnog that unemployment came out. Take a look at this graph. I think it'll help clarify some of this.
Now, what you'll notice at first glance is it looks like the bottom of the seafloor. There's a lot of squiggly lines, and it's kind of convoluted. But in reality, all those squiggly lines, yeah, those are recessions, all prior to 1948 moving forward. Now, the big thing is that big red line at the bottom. You'll notice that's our current recession. The big glaring fact, it's much deeper, it's much longer, it's much wider than all the other recessions before it. But here, why are we talking about this? Why are we talking about recessions? Why are we talking about unemployment? Well, if you're a loan officer, you got to understand that because, hey, if people are unemployed, you're not going to be financing homes. And if you're a real estate agent, well, if they're unemployed, you're not going to be selling homes to them. So you got to understand this. And this will all kind of come together in a second here, but why we're talking about all this bad news. But you can kind of think the current administration, you see that little bump there, Gary?
Yeah, I like that. Wasn't that $14.5 billion worth of census workers that got us that great big improvement?
Yeah, right.
Nice.
Big improvement. Well, it looks like it's going to be much longer and much deeper than the other recessions, which is no shock. Hey, let's get into the second story that came out last week. Now take a look at this graph. Now it's S&P and Case-Shiller's home price index. Now remember how we talked about that whole double dip home price value issue in 2010? Kind of went away towards the end there.
Yep.
Guess what? It's back.
Well, in fact, David Blitzer, committee chairman at Standard & Poor's, he said, and I quote, "The double dip is almost here as 6 cities set new lows in values. There's no good news in October's report. Home prices across the country continue to fall. The trends we have seen over the past few months have not changed. Tax incentives and the national economy remained lackluster in October. Existing home sales and housing starts have been reported for October and November, and there is nothing giving us any sense of optimism." Well, thank you, Mr. Grinch.
Jeez, no doubt, man. That's a bunch of bad news. And hey, why are we talking about all this bad news in 2011? We should be celebrating. We'll get to that, okay? It's all going to make sense. But before that, our third story. Now, you may have missed this, again with the Jameson and the eggnog, but let's get into it. Now, take a look at this. This comes from the Calculated Risk blog. It's top 10 economic questions for 2011. Pretty cool. Guess what number 1 is? Home prices. Are they going to continue to fall in 2011? Well, from the homework we just did, it looks like they are going to.
Number 3, distressed property sales, foreclosures. Now, the activity's been a little slow recently, probably because of foreclosure gate, but we actually expect it to pick up a little bit in 2011. The question, will foreclosures be up or down this year?
Yeah, and if you ask any REO agent out there, they're probably going to tell you that they're going to continue, and I tend to agree. Number 5 is employment. Simple question. Is the U.S. going to continue to create jobs? And that's going to be huge for our industry.
Absolutely. And then number 6, unemployment rate. Interestingly enough, we're in our 19th month of unemployment over 9%. We have not seen that many months since 1980. We've set a new record for unemployment.
Interesting point talking about unemployment. Actually, right now, guys, we have 7.4 million fewer jobs than that of 2007. It's insane. Now, the U.S. economy wants to add 200,000 jobs per month, and that would take us roughly about 3 years to get back to that peak. They're hoping to add 300,000 jobs per month, which would take us about 2 years to get back to that peak. That's not even counting for the 125,000 jobs per month just needed to offset the birth to death ratio.
Well, and if you take that in perspective, let's look at 2010. We added 87,000 payroll jobs per month. At that rate, it would only take 7 years to get back to the previous highs of 2007.
Doesn't sound like a quick fix, and why are we talking about all this bad news? Well, this is why. Let's get into it. Okay, some of you are saying this sucks. Why are we talking about a bad economy? I mean, why are we talking all about all this bad news? Okay, I get it. But again, let's look at this from a contrarian point of view. We're all contrarians here. Let's look at this from a different point of view. If you read a book called The Art of War by Sun Tzu, it talks about knowing your adversary and living in your adversary's world. And in this instance, the adversary is the economy. And it seems kind of fitting since we all got our asses kicked for the last 3 years.
So we now just learned what our adversary's plan is. We learned job growth will be slow. In fact, it could take up to 7 years to get back to what we would call normal. Housing prices may dip a little bit more, and in fact, interest rates will stay at historic lows in 2011. So if the economy is our adversary, and we need to personally conquer our adversary in 2011, well, don't we have a leg up now?
We do, because we know their plan, which means we can plan accordingly in 2011. Now, just imagine all those battles fought in the past. You think they would have turned out a little bit different if all the generals knew the other opposing generals' plans? I think so. So we can plan accordingly, okay? Because we're going to plan for a lean and mean year.
So basically, you're going to say run mean and lean, keep our head down, work hard. Does that mean we plan to fail in 2011? No, it just means we set realistic goals and we continue to be the best at what we do. Now, doesn't that make you feel better about the whole situation? I mean, really. Hey, before we wrap up the show today, we want to introduce the newest member of the RE Source team, John Gabriel.
This guy's a stud, happens to be a great loan officer, and above and beyond that, he's a sick hunter. The guy's been on ESPN and Versus, so if you want to hook up with him, give him a call.
Hey, thanks, guys. And for all the negative news that these guys decided to deliver to you in 2010, I figured you guys should have some good news to start off your 2011. According to HousingWire.com, there are 5 projected strongest markets for 2011. And hey, guess what? Washington is number 2. Specifically, Richland, Pasco, and Kennewick. That's some good news for your 2011, isn't it? I'm John Gabriel.
Hey, I'm Ryan Hills.
I'm Gary the Hawk Hawkinson.
This is the RE Source.